Gartner put out a number this month that is already getting repeated everywhere without much scrutiny. By the end of 2026, 40% of enterprise applications will have embedded AI agents, up from under 5% in 2025. That is not a small claim. That is saying, in 1 year, agentic AI went from a rounding error inside business software to being in nearly half of it. Numbers like this are exactly the kind of thing this channel exists to check. Because a stat like 40% can mean two very different things. It can mean agentic AI genuinely, rapidly took over enterprise software. Or it can mean vendors started slapping an agent label on features that barely changed. Because agent is what sells right now. Let us find out which one this actually is. Gartner is a research and advisory firm. And forecasts like this one typically come from surveying enterprise software vendors and IT leaders about their roadmaps and current deployments, then extrapolating a trend line. That methodology is useful, but it has a specific blind spot worth naming upfront. It counts what vendors say they are building or shipping, not necessarily what enterprises are actually using in production at meaningful scale. And it does not typically distinguish between a genuinely agentic feature, something with real tool use, memory across steps, and a feedback loop, versus a feature that got renamed to include the word agent because that is the current buzzword. This same dynamic happened with blockchain in the previous decade and with, quote, AI powered in the years right after ChatGPT launched. A category becomes hot, and suddenly a large share of existing features get relabeled to match, without the underlying capability actually changing very much. Before we get skeptical, credit where it belongs, because some of this is real, and it lines up with things we have covered on this channel already. Accenture and Google Cloud are launching a suite of pre-built agentic AI solutions specifically aimed at mid-market companies, businesses with annual revenue between $300 million and $3 billion. That is a meaningful signal, because it is not a demo or a press release about the future. It is packaged, sellable product aimed at a very large, very real customer segment. When two companies with that much enterprise reach are building go-to-market motions around agentic AI, that reflects genuine expected demand, not just hype, because sales teams do not build entire product lines around features nobody wants to buy. Combine that with cheaper agentic-capable models shipping agent-first and lower cost per task, and the underlying conditions for real enterprise adoption are genuinely in place this year in a way they were not 12 months ago. Here is where I want you to slow down before repeating that 40% number is settled fact. First, embedded is doing a lot of work in that sentence. An application having an embedded agent can mean anything from a deep, genuinely autonomous workflow to a single chatbot widget bolted onto an existing dashboard that got rebranded as agentic for the sales deck. Gartner's forecast does not appear to weight these differently. Second, this is a forecast for the end of the year, not a measurement of where things stand today. And forecasts in fast-moving categories like this one have a real history of being wrong in a optimistic direction, because analysts are extrapolating from vendor roadmaps and stated intentions, not from verified deployment data. And third, watch for the gap between shipped and used. A feature can exist inside a piece of enterprise software and still see almost no real adoption. Because enterprise rollout, employee training, and workflow change take far longer than shipping the feature itself. A number about how many applications technically contain agent capability tells you very little about how many employees are actually relying on that capability to get real work done. If you want a number that tells you more than Gartner's 40%, here is what to track instead. Watch for independent usage data, not vendor-reported feature counts. Things like actual task completion volume through agentic features, or third-party surveys asking employees whether they use agent features weekly, not whether their software technically has one. Watch for case studies with specific, checkable outcomes. This company cut processing time by this many hours using this specific workflow, rather than vague claims about efficiency gains. And watch the mid-market rollout specifically, because that Accenture and Google Cloud push is a genuinely trackable real-world test if mid-market companies are still meaningfully adopting those pre-built agentic solutions by year-end. That is a far stronger signal than any percentage of applications that technically ship within agent feature turned on. Quick recap. Gartner is projecting 40% of enterprise applications will have embedded agents by year-end, up from under 5% last year. The underlying momentum is genuinely real. Cheaper capable models, real go-to-market pushes from major players like Accenture and Google Cloud, and clear enterprise demand. But the specific 40% number blends genuinely agentic deployments with relabeled existing features, and it measures what is shipped, not what is actually used. So, signal or noise? Split verdict. The adoption trend is signal, real and accelerating. The specific 40% figure is noise until it is backed by independent usage data instead of vendor roadmaps. Track the mid-market rollout, not the headline stat. Subscribe for the numbers checked before they get repeated as fact. Every week, signal from the noise.